Good evening and welcome to all of you from the neighborhood, from the Powderhorn neighborhood, also from surrounding neighborhoods, and particularly for the two candidates who are vying to become the representative from District 61B. My name is Marion Hall. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is an organization, a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in all levels of government. Our purpose is to inform people about governmental, public policy, and political issues. Members include men, women, students, new citizens, and our volunteers provide services like moderating meetings like this, giving out information on how and when to vote, registering voters, and disseminating nonpartisan information about election issues. Joining me tonight is Ann Jade, who will be the timekeeper. She will flash a 30-second card at the appropriate time, and then a stop card when your time is up. Two candidates are here to win the legislative seat in this special election. Our purpose is to hear from the candidates so that you, or we all, can be informed when making our choice. Nathan Blumenshine. Susan Allen will be second. Then when we, at the end of the program tonight, when they make a 1-minute talk to close it out, we'll reverse the time. After the opening statements, the League will ask 2 questions for both candidates, and then your questions will be addressed. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the questions. All the questions should be brief and addressed to all the candidates. Some members will be bringing cards around if you need them, and then we'll be collecting them also. The League reserves the right to combine duplicate questions. And a little bit after 8, we will begin the 1-minute closing statements in the opposite order. We will begin now with an opening statement from Nathan Blumenshine.
Great. Thank you so much to PPNA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, as well as the Powderhorn Park staff who helped set this up, and to Susan Allen, who is just an incredible candidate in this race, and I really know that our competition is making us both better representatives and public servants of this community. So thank you, Susan. And thank all of you for coming out. This is awesome to have so many people here. Great. My name is Nathan Blumenshine, and it is an honor to be a candidate for the Minnesota House of Representatives here in Powderhorn and the rest of 61B, where I've spent most of my life. I'm running on a platform of respect. That's it. Respect for all people, regardless of skin color, sexual orientation, faith, language, income, gender, or age. Respect for all people is how I will determine where I stand on every issue in the state legislature. For example, respect means that I support health care for all people. That's why I support the Minnesota Health Plan. Respect means that I believe that all our children should receive a high-quality education regardless of their skin color, their first language, or their learning ability. Respect also means that we need to build an economy where people who work can earn enough money to support their families with dignity. But respect for all people isn't just the goal. It's also the means to accomplish that goal. So I will not just work with Democrats, and I will not just work with Republicans. I will work with all people, regardless of ideology, to make a Minnesota where all people have a better life. I have a vision that by working with the people most different from us, we can make Minnesota better. I'm a young, independent progressive, right here from Powderhorn, with experience working with people all over the world. It will be an honor to represent this district because I truly believe it is one of the best places in our world. Please vote for me on January 10th. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susan Allen. I'm also running for the Minnesota House seat in District 61B. And I want to thank the PPNA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. And also thank you, Nate, for running. Without you running, democracy wouldn't work. So thank you. And thank you all for being here. This is a great turnout. Tell you a little bit about who I am, what I've done, and what I want to do. My family came from South Dakota. My father was from the Pine Ridge Reservation. My mother was from Rosebud. Pine Ridge, Rosebud, three of the counties there in the top 5 poorest counties in the country. That's where my parents born and raised. They left there to go to, my father left there to go to school, and by the time I was born, he had his first job in South Dakota, and they were going to pay him half of what they paid the white priests in the state. So we left when I was in preschool. We proceeded to move to about 5 different states. By the time I was 14 years old, I had gone to 20 different schools. Their work, they decided to stay in the church, and they decided that they were going to change it, starting with the pay equity. And so I grew up in a time of great political and social change for American Indians. In the late 60s, early 70s, when AIM started, Wounded Knee. I happened to be living in Northfield, Minnesota at the time. My father was doing a sabbatical at St. Olaf College. And so it was a very time of awakening for me. By the time I was 11 years old, I knew I wanted to be an attorney, and then I wanted to work for social and economic justice. I saw extreme poverty, and I saw that we as a people would not survive unless we learned about our sovereignty and unless we fought for justice. And so that's the future that I saw. And I believe my running for office is a continuation of that. And I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. As I mentioned, the League has 2 questions, and during that time, the other people from the League will be collecting your questions and combining them and bringing them up. The first question that I have for both of you is that if there's a bill coming to the legislature in 2012 that would put on the ballot an amendment to require a photo ID for all the voters, would you support it? Why or why not?
Do we have an order? Do I go first?
Is this 1 minute?
1 minute, yes.
Can anybody answer a question in 1 minute? I couldn't.
We'll give it a shot. We'll do our best. I'm very opposed to the idea of having photo ID be put on the ballot, and here's why. We should have a democracy that welcomes everybody. You should not be forced to maintain certain requirements to participate in our democracy and to have the freedom that we hold so dear in our country. What I find really interesting about this particular piece of legislation is I think it actually goes counterintuitive to the ideology of some of the proponents of this legislation. And we'll work really hard to make that clear. This is an example of government creating a problem where there isn't one already through excessive regulation. And I think that's a message that needs to be told loud and clear, specifically to members of the Republican Party who are promoting this bill. It's as simple as that. There isn't a problem of voter fraud. Photo ID would create a problem of disenfranchising voters who can't meet that requirement. It's an example of excessive government regulation.
I'm opposed to photo ID requirement. It's discrimination. I have fought against discrimination all my life. If Democrats were in power, we'd be bringing a bill that for ranked choice voting so that we can include more people in the political process.
The next question is about budgets. As we all know, Minnesota is facing a budget problem. What ideas do you have? What do you see as possible reductions in the state budget? Do you have some ideas on that?
We're going to keep going the same order, or should we switch
Well,
up?
why don't you switch on? Switch. And if you would grab your stands while we're doing these, that's okay.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, first of all, we need a budget that reflects our values, and we're just getting so far away from that. Budget cuts, administration. There has to be some way that you can make things more efficient. But as far as we need priorities. We need to look at what we have. So many unmet needs, so many programs, so many social problems that are underfunded. So really, it's about. At the same time, you need to think about increasing revenue. I don't think you can't do one without the other. It's just not going to work. But I'm willing to take a look at any option really.
We definitely need a balanced approach to solving our budget problems. We have repeatedly made cuts to our safety net and borrowed from our schools and kicked the can further and further down the road. What we need to do is raise taxes on the wealthiest among us. We have decreased the state income tax on the wealthiest Minnesotans from 14% in the mid-'80s to 7.85% that it is today. Governor Dayton's plan to increase that tax on the wealthiest among us, those individuals making more than $150,000 a year, to 10.95% would go a long way in helping us end the systematic budget shortfalls of our state.
Now we're going to present your questions. What is your position on universal health care?
I think I'm first this
You're
time.
first on this one.
I'm for it. I began my experience in state politics by interning with our now Senator Jeff Hayden on the Minnesota Health Plan, which I like to say is the latest great idea that just hasn't happened yet. It's the right thing to do to provide everybody in our state with health care. It's also the smart thing to do because it'll save money in the long run. Right now we're spending 31 cents on every health care dollar to administrative and profits of insurance companies. We need to make a healthcare system that's about people and not profits. The Minnesota Health Plan does it through universal health care and a single payer system, and that's why I support it.
I support the Minnesota Health Plan. I think it's the most efficient way to go. This is something that's very personal to me. It's something that, as Native people, we are guaranteed health care, but there are only so many hospitals in the country. You have to travel maybe 200-300 miles to get to a hospital. My sister went into the hospital this morning, and when she works for a nonprofit, does not have health care. It's something. It affects all of us, and it's a burden on us. And some people say that the Minnesota Health Plan is too idealistic, but the system it does not work, and people are dying because of it, and the economy is suffering because of it. Employers are suffering, so it's something. I don't think it's idealistic. It's a necessity, and we need to keep advocating for it.
For both of you, what specific issues have you been involved in grassroots organizing, and what issues are tugging at your heart?
The issue I've worked with is bringing organic foods to low-income neighborhoods. My mother died from diabetes at a very young age. And so my sister and I started a organization, Earth, and we serve a meal every Sunday, and about 30% are homeless. The rest are families with children. And so that is something that I grew up in places on reservations where the diet consists of commodities. And government commodities, and what that does to people and living in food deserts in the cities without whole foods is the same thing. The disease, the heart disease, the diabetes is. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I believe it can be done, and I've seen it done.
In 2008, it was a great pleasure of mine to be part of the grassroots movement to elect President Obama as a field organizer in Pennsylvania. I also worked on a grassroots movement at my college in Middlebury, Vermont, to get our school to invest in environmentally responsible funds to promote the endowment. I also have been involved in the grassroots movement of 350.org and other climate change organizations here in our city and state to make it very clear that we need to take direct, dramatic, and aggressive action to reduce the impact of climate change that climate change is going to have on our country and world in the future. I've also been part of a grassroots movement with the YMCA, actually, in Bethlehem in the Middle East to raise awareness about the occupation of Palestine by the Israeli army.
The next question is, what is your view on immigration reform?
Bueno, esto es uno de mis preguntas más favoritos. في حقيقة الحقوق الإنسان هي مهم لكل الناس. مرايغا Nathan Blumenshine كوشمي داتكو إدل برشاو ناكسن. That was Spanish, Arabic, and Somali. The first thing that we need to do is to understand where people are coming from in all walks of life. We need to make sure that we defeat bills in our state legislature like E-Verify and Secure Communities. And we also need to make sure that we can continue to send money home to our grandmothers in Somalia and make sure that there's an effective Hawala transfer system. We should also make America the most welcoming place for any immigrant from anywhere. And I will work very hard to make that possible for everyone.
I have to tell you that I'm Native American, so initially we were opposed to all immigration. It's something I'm learning about. It's a very complex problem. It's a federal problem. It's a state problem, a local problem, neighborhood problem. That it is. We need immigration reform. It's facing it. What do I want to say? First, we need to help the refugees that are coming here to integrate, and that is something that we've had programs before that were relocation programs where they were fully funded. Some of them were successful, some not so. But the federal government regulates who comes in, how they come in, but the state, and then the state is expected to fund how people are integrated, and those funds are inadequate. But yet too much attention is focused on the negative, that we have illegal immigrants here, and that's really just, that problem is really, those are our neighbors, basically, so.
Thank you. We have one question on how will you communicate with all of the people in your district after you're in office. You could use email, but someone would love to see a more personal approach. What are your ideas about communication?
I would prefer the small groups and the being available at coffee shops and being at regular places so that you know where I was at, so you could come and talk. And I do much better on small groups and one-to-one than public speaking, just much better. And like talking on the phone, that was an amazing experience with the delegates, very informative, and really got to learn a lot about the issues, about how the issues should be framed. And so that is a part of, if I get elected, that is going to help me govern better. And so, I didn't come in this with an agenda with huge single issues, except for to get the majority back, and also to defeat the marriage amendment. Those were two of the primary reasons why I stepped up to run. That's all I would say about that. Thank you.
Look, it's obvious that I am young. I have a lot of energy, I have a lot of heart, but I'm not going to be a good representative unless I listen to every single person in this district. That's why my campaign has knocked on every door in this district, almost twice. And I've asked people what they are looking for in their state representative, so I can hear from them what the important issues are and what the experiences that I, as a young person, haven't had yet that will help inform me be a better representative. I've already planned on having, if I'm successful on January 10th, a town hall forum before the legislative session starts to help the community guide my policy in these first 3 months. I will continue to have those town hall forums. I will continue to walk the neighborhoods, the streets, and talk to people one-on-one. So people don't have to come to me, I will go to them. Of course I will have Facebook. Of course I will have Twitter. Of course I will have email blasts. These are all really important things because the goal of this community is to take the awesome, incredible talents and voices we have here and make us an effective force for change at the state capitol. It's not about Nathan Blumenshine. It's about this community.
Speaking of communication, you've had a chance to, you are having a chance to ask questions of the candidates right now. If you would like to tell them something or communicate in another way, they may be here a little bit later after this forum is concluded. Claire, can you tell me how late the place is open and what time allotments there are?
I think the building definitely closes at 9.
So 10 minutes to 9 we're out. Okay, all right, thank you.
I would love to stay after to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what is your position, or do you have any suggestions on the foreclosure problem in Minnesota?
Great question. This is a major concern of many people in this community, as I've learned by talking to them at their doors. There are many people who are living in homes that are about to be foreclosed on or who have neighbors that have had to move out because of foreclosures. This problem started in the bailout when we bailed out banks that held bad mortgages, but we didn't give that money to the people that pay off those mortgages in the first place. We need to develop policies where we think about taking care of the people first and the banks second. So there are many things that we can do to invest in keeping people in their homes that actually turns out to be a lot cheaper than going through the whole foreclosure process. So it's not only the right thing to do, again, to keep people in their homes, keep communities healthy, it's also the smart thing to do. It costs less money and is better for our economy. That's what I will support. I'm sure Susan supports that too. I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we recognize is that a lot of these great ideas haven't seen the light of day because of partisanship in our state government, and that's the main issue that I want to address as a respect candidate.
This neighborhood has been hit really hard with foreclosures. And so I was speaking with Karen Clark and Paul Thiessen, and I overheard them talk. I'm not an insider, but I overheard them talking about doing something positive coming up because apparently the budget crisis is not so dire, which I don't see that. But they talked about doing something about foreclosures and bringing. There was a bill that was introduced, and it has something I believe with putting land trusts. And so that's something that it would be a priority for me to help in that effort in any way, to bring legislation forth. And really it's about jobs, and that's the priority, is creating well-paying jobs, providing training so that people can keep jobs, and then dealing with some of the obstacles, the barriers that people face to keep jobs, whether it's transportation or assistance.
someone wrote that it's expected that there will be another constitutional amendment during this session to make Minnesota a right-to-work state. What is your position on this?
You're up, yeah.
Well, I'm against that. I mean, and I will work. I've been endorsed by numerous labor organizations and very familiar with the issue, and will defer to them as to how that issue is to be framed, and work in any way I can to advocate against that, to be a spokesperson, and it's something that it's going to take education, community awareness about the issue, and it's going to have to be a grassroots. But the unions are so good at that, about going door to door and about educating people about it and getting public support, and that's really key to fight this. So I will support that effort.
I also will oppose the right to work amendment because I believe that unions are one of the greatest forces for economic equality that our nation has. And we need to promote unions and organized labor to continue to have that defense against a growing inequality and economic gap that we see. Often we hear that the best way to help working people is by reducing the taxes on the wealthiest among us, the job creators. The best way to help working people is by helping working people. We need to respect workers. We need to respect workers, the work they do, and the families that they're supporting, and a right to work amendment does not do that. That's why I will oppose it.
How do you feel about Governor Dayton's initiative to organize or unionize child care workers or child care providers?
So when I learned about this issue, the first thing that I did was ask my child care provider what his position was and her position was on this issue. And they informed me about the difficulties they'd been having with the government interference in their child care practice, and how a labor union or a union of child care providers probably won't solve all those problems that they're having, but will be a good step toward achieving some sort of collective bargaining power, which is the whole point. So that's why I support the unionization, or at least the vote for child care providers to have the option of becoming a union.
And I will also support the option to form a union with child care workers. And I understand that the proposal was just a small segment of them, of the workers. But I will fight against any infringement on collective bargaining rights. That's just it's a fundamental. It's something. It's our power. I mean, the rights that it protects, the wages, the working hours, the environmental conditions. It's just something that all the unions are under attack. It's something that, the power that unions had in the 1970s, which is incredible. And during that time, we saw the greatest changes as far as environmental protection laws, consumer laws. And so we need to get back to that political climate, and so that unions do have the power that they once had.
Both of you mentioned that you represent all your constituents. What issues are you especially sensitive to on the various groups of people in the neighborhood, whether it's Native Americans or other groups in the neighborhood or in the district? I'm sorry.
Kind of. I think it's a question about racial disparities, basically. How to address that.
My question, I'm interested in Native American issues.
Native American issues
That's
specifically?
what's my
Okay.
specific. And I wanted to know, even though I know you're Native American, what are the causes of youth also, what were the
Okay, perfect.
issues, the particular.
What issues have you
Specifically
assessed?
Native American issues in the community. What are our biggest concerns?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you can say that they're, I mean, poverty affects poverty one race the same as the other. There are probably one specific issue I think that may be different is child welfare, because you have the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is a federal mandate that, we need to ensure that the state is complying with that. And most of you, if you're familiar with that in the 70s, children were being removed from the home with very little cause. And so you had many children not knowing where they came from, had identity problems, high rate of suicide, alcoholism, and just so the law was passed in the 70s to protect tribes, so that our existence, basically. And so that's one issue that's different. But really, I mean, living in the city, we have first, second, third generation Native American people living in cities, and they're dealing with the same issues everybody else, with affordable housing, with crime, with juvenile, what other services their kids have and where they go for recreation, and so that's it.
Susan, obviously your answer on this question is much more informed than I, since I don't come from that background. So the first thing I would do is go to the Native American community to figure out what the most important issues are and ask Susan specifically about this. From an outsider's point of view, I see that the rate of unemployment among Native Americans in our city is 25%. And the rate of unemployment in the white community is 6%. This isn't a Native American problem. This isn't a white problem. It's all of our problem. We need to make sure that there's specific language in our bonding bill that's going to come up this session that addresses the racial disparities and the employment gap between all racial groups, and make sure there's specific language to reduce those discriminatory and really, really sad and shameful numbers that we have right here in our community. We need to address this, and we need to address it really well.
We have time for about one or two more questions. What is your position on a new publicly funded Viking stadium?
You guys are doing great sitting through this, so it's nice that we have a quick break here to talk about something that's supposed to be fun, sports. I'm a big sports fan. Unfortunately, talking about the Viking Stadium is a big distraction from the real issues that we need to address, which are creating jobs for people, making sure that we pay back our schools, and providing health care for people. I do not support public financing for the Viking Stadium because we do not get a good deal. It's not going to provide the same economic stimulus as, say, investing in our teachers or in our construction workers would. And we are going to be held hostage to our emotional attachments to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm really worried about Adrian Peterson's torn ACL. But we can't let that fact and the threat of the Vikings moving to Los Angeles to make us make a bad decision and spend a lot of money that we don't have building a Viking stadium.
I'm opposed to public funding for the Viking Stadium. My grandsons are not, but there are too many unmet needs. Until we can fully fund education and transportation and housing and job training and fix the healthcare system, and it's just there are other ways to do it. I mean, there has to be other ways. Whether it's a billionaire can come up with some way to do this. It's just we need a bonding bill. We need to be funding infrastructure. I mean, nobody likes that word, but investing in our education system, or even the facilities, even, and building, just extending the hours, money to extend the library hours. Think about that, and the money that was used to, for rec centers, and how much of a positive impact that has. So.
We have one question on how you would support education, but I think that you both have talked about that already. So the next question will be, how do you plan to create jobs in this community?
They talked a little bit about that, about a robust bonding bill. I think it was like $300 million. It's just not enough. People talk about $1 billion, that's something that should be done immediately. And job training. Looking at we have middle-level workers that are out of work and looking to, there's going to be jobs that are come up, green jobs, and need training. And that's an area that we spend a lot on college education, but not very little, just a fraction of that on training for vocational education. And so that's something I want to look at closely and do what I can to increase funding for that. And for those that don't have skills, I mean, again, having the option, education, and the systems there to support them through that.
This is a tricky question because we need to create jobs everywhere in our state. And having specific plans to create jobs in a specific geographic region is always a little bit tricky. I believe that we all do better when we all do better. We need to make sure that happens all across our state. Specifically for this community, I think we especially need to address the racial disparities that we see in employment. And I think the best way to do that, as already mentioned, is having specific language in the bonding bill to make sure that happens and there are jobs for people of all racial backgrounds. There are also ways that we can increase the investment in our cities by restoring the local government aid that was cut in the last legislative session, which I think is a really important step because there are more pressures on an urban area, and it is legitimate to ask the rest of the state to help us finance our metropolitan centers.
We have a question here that I'm not very knowledgeable about, and I can't quite understand it. But apparently there are some republics that don't want to hear the issue of doctors losing their licenses if they oversaw or participated in torture. Does this occur in Minnesota? And if so, what can be done about it? Do we know anything about it? Or have you been aware of it?
I went to St. Thomas University, actually. I do know a little bit about that.
And I know about that too.
Okay.
It wrote about genocide.
Yeah.
Great.
Ellen Kennedy. And she's gone before the legislature when whoever that person had an inappropriate relationship, she would not address it at all.
Okay. Great. This is an issue that I need to learn a whole lot more about. What I can say on the issue of torture is that one of my biggest disappointments in President Obama is that we continue to have Guantanamo Bay, which was one of his promises in the campaign. And we need to make sure that we, as the United States of America, the land of liberty and freedom, that we are not sending an image to the rest of the world that we accept the practice of torture. And we certainly shouldn't accept doctors who have overseen torture as part of our healthcare system, which is about providing people with healthcare and not other medical uses, I guess, of that technology.
That's St. Thomas University.
Okay.
Ellen Kennedy.
Ellen Kennedy. I will get in touch with her. Thank you.
I mean, that surprises me. I don't know about that. So, licensing, I mean, I'm an attorney license. I mean, I can lose my license over negligence. So it's a pretty high standard, and it should be, because people put their trust in us. And so and that we need to preserve that. So again, I'm sort of at a loss, but it just seems to me that whether there was some sort of other circumstances but it just seems odd that wouldn't be part of the standard. I mean, because it's about character and fitness as well.
Coming up the Bush administration, it was all about that.
So it's probably, to me, it seems like a matter of enforcement and that there was some discretion there and that it wasn't exercised properly. So.
You would be able to talk to the candidates afterwards if you can explain it better or if they need to know more or whatever. We have time for one more question, and I think that you can address this in your 1 minute talk at the end. What are the fundamental differences in your positions that would help us, and it says discriminate, but I don't think anybody wants to discriminate, well, would help us decide between the two of you?
Can we answer this before our 1 minute closing statements, please?
Yes, fine, that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you. Yeah.
All throughout this race, I mean, the candidates have been similar on the issues because we're progressives. I think it's a matter of, to me, it's about who you want to see as your next state representative. And I believe it's about you're looking at who we are, and I hope that I've conveyed to you who I am, about the life experience that I will bring to the position, and my professional experience, and my involvement in the commitment to this community. I've lived in Powderhorn for 14 years. It's really the only home that I know, because it reminds me of reservations. Basically, you have where disadvantaged in so many different ways. But you have people also that want diversity, that live here, who are the social workers, the teachers, and that are committed to social justice, and that's why I live here.
So it's no secret that our political system is broken. Last summer, our state government shut down for 20 days because of partisanship in the legislature. My platform of respect means that I will respect and work with people of all different party labels: Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green, respect anything. I will invite legislators from Greater Minnesota to come here and visit Powderhorn, visit our community, and I will go to theirs. By building relationships, by building trust, by building respect, that's how we can move forward on these great ideas that Susan Allen and I both share. We need to make sure that we change politics in Minnesota to be about respect and working together, and not about having your team win and kicking the other team out. That's why I'm running as an independent respect candidate in this election, and that's why I'm so fired up that everybody here came out here to listen to us talk tonight. So thank you. I don't remember who's going first anymore.
Okay.
It's been too long. It's been too wild.
So was that your closing statement?
No.
No, okay.
Oh,
So
no.
okay, the closing statements for 1 minute. Susan Allen is going to be the first.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Perfect.
And then you'll be next. So Susan, it's all yours.
Again, thank you for being here, and again, I've asked for your support, your vote on January 10th, and also ask for volunteers, and also people that want to really get out there. We are trying to bring in new voters, and whether that's on the phones or at the doors, and it's something that's really the reason I'm running, is because I'm somebody that leads by example, and I've learned that in order to change something, I mean, it's something that normally somebody from my background, you wouldn't normally think somebody would want to participate in this. But it's really, I have dual citizenship. I'm a member of a tribe. I have a political affiliation, but I'm also a state citizen. I'm a citizen of the United States. And I am somebody that believes that the only way to change something, an institution, is by participating in it.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight so I can share my vision with you about how politics should be in Minnesota. One of my favorite quotes is by the writer E.J. Dionne, who says, "A nation that hates politics will not long survive as a democracy." I have a vision that by working with the people most different from us, we can build a Minnesota where everybody can go to the doctor when they need to, where all our children receive a high-quality education, and where everybody can find a good job. I'm asking for 10 months, because if in 10 months I don't exceed the expectations of every person in this room, I will be out in the presidential election of 2012. I'm running as an independent because I don't believe that we should divide ourselves into us and them. I'm not part of the Democratic team, and I'm not part of the Republican team. The only team that I'm going to play for is Minnesota. My name is Nathan Blumenshine. It would be a tremendous honor to represent this community in the Minnesota House of Representatives. Please vote for me on January 10th. Thank you.
This brings the forum to a close. Thank you for all of you for participating, for coming tonight. As a result of this discussion, I think we're all better prepared to vote on January 10th. I want to thank the candidates for being here, and I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
Thank our host.